and I'll flick it to you shortly as well. Yeah, so feel
Are you
free
okay with recording it, Joe?
Yeah, I'm all good.
Yeah, okay.
I'll send it to you shortly. Joe, number one, is there any, apart from what Rod's just said, any hesitation, anything that you don't believe he's been saying, any proof that you need on NDIS?
I just need to know, like I was saying to Rod the other day, you see a lot on the internet, you know, some saying there's scams, this, that, you need to have it all rented out, all rooms to get full benefits. So I just want to know how the actual process works, what is right, what is wrong, what's a scam, what's not a scam.
Yeah, okay. All righty. Scam part's sort of pretty easy, and that's really builders that have got into it because there's a lot of money to be made in it.
Yep.
And for example, you know, I've been doing this for nearly 5 years now. And I've got a business partner that, you know, drives around the country looking at areas and finding land and dealing with the local NDIS providers. And we went to one suburb and decided that there was demand for 12 houses. So we built 6 to make sure that, you know, they would always be fully occupied. Talking to the local builders about what we needed, what NDIS was. One of them thinks that, oh, that's a great idea. And he built 120 houses in that suburb.
NDIS ones?
NDIS ones.
Okay, yep.
We decided there was enough for 6. He built 120. And so those investors are never, ever, ever going to have NDIS participants in those houses. But the builders have made a fortune out of it all. So, yeah, so we see that, and we see that in Western Australia at the moment as well. There's more houses being built in Western Australia than are going to be required by 2042. Yep. So, and that's one reason we've sort of got a bit more aggressive on the whole NDIS thing lately, because we do it completely different to a normal investment property and the builders and normal marketing companies. We start with a lease, so that every one of our properties has got a lease and it's got participants waiting to move into it. So that alleviates that whole problem. What I have, let me just share that screen wherever it went.
So can I ask, so if you choose an area, let's say, where you're guaranteed, what happens if Joe Blow builds 100 of them down the road or whatever? Do they then go and move on? Like, if they got a choice to move on there, or what happens there?
Yeah. They can move, all right? They're not tied to a house.
Yep.
And there's a whole lot of rules and regulations, and they talk about freedom and choice, or choice and control, or some sort of catchphrase like that in NDIS. You'll see it come up in their paperwork all the time, or their presentations. But effectively, the participants can't move or don't move because there's so much paperwork administration to move from one house to another that it's not really practical for them to do it. And nobody's going to, the NDIS provider that's managing them, or that, is not going to help them in a lot of cases move to a different house. They're going to have to get that organised by somebody else. And to move to a different house, you need finance approval, which means you've got to put in paperwork to the NDIS. To get finance approval can take 6 months to a year. So the bureaucracy of it all is quite limiting once people are in a house. Plus, the houses that we build are custom designed to them. So they're not going to get that for another year or two, because there are not other houses built. And there's also limitations as to how many you're allowed to build in an area as well. So we don't really know how they got around those limitations. They certainly can't register them as NDIS houses if they build so many as well. Explain that as we go along. You'll see that there's a whole lot of criteria with NDIS to make sure that there's not too many in a particular area. And, you can't have more than 15 bedrooms in a street or something like that, because the whole point of NDIS is to integrate people into society, not just have a, like a high-rise building full of disabled people, like we used to do with, migrants once upon a time. So they're all fully integrated. I've got a little presentation that'll explain all the major points, and it'll prompt a few questions from you as well. So we can just ask those as we go along. Can you guys see happy smiling woman in the?
Yeah, you keep cutting out. Rod, is he cutting
Yeah.
out? Friend?
Yeah, it's cutting out to me too. We're only getting part of it.
I'm losing. I'm only getting every word.
Yeah. It's
All right.
missing
Let-
somewhere.
Let me sit a bit closer, and
Oh,
we'll
we can
see.
hear. We can hear. It just keeps cutting out.
All right.
It's
Yeah.
almost like a loose connection.
Yeah. Not sure why. It should be all okay. All right. Well, I'll box on. When we talk to you, so I've done this presentation more than 4 years ago. I haven't changed one bit in it yet. And it basically just proves to people that whatever we were talking about 4 years ago was correct. And it's actually worked out better than what the theory was when we started looking at this. So for 20 years or so, Joe been involved with helping people invest. So, once upon a time I had enough investment properties that I didn't need to go to work anymore. So I quit work and just traveled around the country. If kids needed school fees paid, I'd just refinance a house. If I needed another car, then I'd refinance a house. And that was all just paid for by ever increasing rents. So I've just practiced what I preached, and then did more and more full-time work with investment, people investing in property. Then NDIS came along. So a lot of people think of me a bit like a buyer's advocate, where I'm just running around looking at what the best deals are in the country. Of course, NDIS came up with huge income, because the income that we're getting out of an NDIS house is about 5 times the normal rent of an equivalently priced property, and on a per room basis, it's 9 or 10 times the rent that we would get for a room in that house usually. The NDIS rents the properties on a per room basis. When we talk to you, you don't have to believe a word that we say. Neither me nor Rod, because everything's documented for you. You can see the lease, before you buy the property. You don't have to trust that anything's going to happen. There's already a lease. It's already documented. It's already signed by the NDIS provider. They're not going to give you a lease unless they've actually got somebody waiting for that house as well. And to answer your question about how do we work out what area, or where we should be investing these days, the NDIS providers come to us and say, we've got X amount of people waiting in this area. Please build us a house. We'll give you a lease for your investor so that they're safe. Off you go. And I've got NDIS providers ringing me every day, say, we need houses here, get us investors there, etc. So that's pretty easy these days. We need a specialist mortgage broker. You usually can't use your everyday mortgage broker. I'm not too sure who you're using or what they know about NDIS, but NDIS is more a commercial loan, and a typical residential mortgage broker's not going to get it done in time. And with NDIS, there's a excuse me, there's a huge demand. So we don't have a lot of time to sit around and educate a mortgage broker or anybody else about it. If they don't get your paperwork, your approvals done, land agent, NDIS provider doesn't care. They're just going to sell the thing to somebody else. So there is definitely sense of urgency with all this, because they just constantly sell. Accountant, you're going to need to ask him in what name to purchase these things, because it's huge income. And so you don't want to just purchase it in your own name and have half of the money immediately disappear in tax. That would be a big waste. A lot of people will put into family trust structures, unit trust, maybe company. Certainly you can buy them in your own name as well. Doesn't happen too much. It is a little bit easier though. And, you know, if you want a second opinion from an accountant, because accountants that we use are doing it all day, every day with our other customers, I'm happy to even pay for you to get that second opinion on what the ownership structure of the property should be from a tax point of view, but also legal liability point of view. Now, we don't use conveyances. Conveyances just tick a box. We need a lawyer to make sure that everything's in your best interest. And, you know, it ends up cheaper than using conveyances anyway, typically. Depending on how old you are, we'd always say consider getting these into super funds too, because in super, if you're not working full-time over 60, then it can be all tax-free money. And it's huge money. You know, there's nothing that's giving us less than $2,000 a week. And we're getting up to $5,000 a week or more out of these properties. So if you could have that as a tax-free income, it would be spectacularly good. So all those people are available. You can speak to them up front. You don't need to have bought anything, just to make sure that you get it all organised and in the right structure as well. The NDIS was really an election promise. They've been thinking about it since 2008. Finally got into legislation in 2016 when the Labor government won. So we thought when the Liberals got in, you know, they'd just slice it, which they do with a whole lot of government projects, but they didn't. They actually ended up spending more money on it. So we know that the NDIS is here to stay, and there's a lot of proof that it's here to stay. One of the most obvious things for us was the rent that we get paid. So can you see a spreadsheet there on the screen?
Yep.
Yep. All right. So if you have a look at that, that's financial year 22-23, and we used to get $42,000 per room for the typical house that we were building. 44,000, let's say.
Yep.
High physical support with on-site overnight assistance, $44,000 a room. Now, we went to the next financial year, so 2023-2024, current financial year, and we go to that same house. The rent there's gone to $62,000 a room, up from 44. So if the NDIS was going to get cut, if they were going to squeeze it, they certainly would not have increased the rent per room by 50%. And if you actually have a look at the one there, $89,000 a room. Previous to that, it was $47,000 a room. So the rent's gone from $47,000 a room, which is half the houses that we built. It's gone up to 86, whatever it was. $89,000 a room.
So that means that just with a minimum 2 residents, which is very conservative, that's the minimum you'd have. It's a very substantial figure, because not all rooms are always rented, are they?
No. Now, just think that us three are coming at the NDIS from a point of view as world's safest investment and highest income, but the NDIS providers don't give a shit about us, all right? Their job is to look after the participant and give them the best quality of life as possible. So for first 4 years of this, we were running around building houses for 3 participants and high physical support, so people wheelchair bound who got the greatest income, got the greatest rent. So we were building those houses, but the NDIS providers were only ever putting 2 people into that house. So we were getting an income of $44,000 a year times 2, plus a little bit more. There's a couple of other sources of income that we get. So we're getting about $100,000 a house. Now, not one of our customers complained about getting $100,000 a house, but I'm arguing with NDIS providers as to why we're not getting $150,000 a house. And they were saying, oh, well, it's a lot better for somebody's mental health to just be in a house with one person. There's a lot of equipment. They've got wheelchairs, hoists, joists, medical facilities. Their friends come over, their family come over. It's there's too many, too much stuff to be going and putting 3 people in a house, and 3 people, may not get on as easily as 2 people getting along in a house as well. So actually recognise that NDIS providers would do this. And this is why NDIS is really good. We don't really have any complaints about NDIS. The only complaints you ever hear are overcrowding, and you, me, and other investors are actually fixing that problem. So overcrowding is where they might have 20 people in a house, 5 people in a house. Of course, there's going to be arguments, violence, where you're overcrowded with other people and they don't have the proper facilities. So we've got NDIS providers that are putting people in caravan parks, don't even have their own toilets. They're in old motels. They're paying $400 a night Airbnb to just have these people somewhere to sleep. So they're absolutely desperate for accommodation. And, that's one reason why the government, went and put rent from $44,000 a room for the 2 participant houses up to $89,000 a room, because it realised that's the ideal circumstances for the NDIS participants. Now, having said that, when we talk about stock and what investments are available, there's going to be a lot of 2 participant houses because that means the minimum income that we're getting out of those houses is about $170,000, $180,000 a year. And, that's fantastic for a $800,000, $900,000 house, that's for sure. So all the returns are typically up in the 20% mark for the typical house and land packages that we'd build. Here, there was actually a Royal Commission, and that reported in December, and it said, the way we're going, we're never going to build enough houses. There's approximately 46,000 people that need accommodation, and at the moment we've built about 2,700 houses. So, 5,000 or 6,000 rooms have been built. So we're about 40,000 rooms short. And so the government said they now want bigger houses and they want us to build an extra bedroom so that they can put 3 people into a house instead of the 2 people. And, that's a slight change that it's not mandatory. It's what they want. But the NDIS providers are always listening to what the government wants. And so we're now starting to build bigger houses with 3 bedrooms or for 3 participants, because it's a lot easier to just build an extra bedroom while we're building these houses to accommodate an extra person and to help alleviate this shortage of accommodation.
And all these houses have another room for the carer, don't they?
They do.
Yeah.
So every house that we've got has on-site overnight assistance, and that's where the carer lives to provide 24-hour care for these people. Plus, you'll see that there's a range of options as well. Usually these days, 2 living areas. Friends come over. One person wants to watch rugby, wants to watch, AFL. Stick them in a different room. They have a good quality of life as well. And excuse me, and the houses are getting bigger, so they're getting more and more expensive. So at the moment, we've got until 30th of June, where one of the NDIS providers will buy 2 participant houses from us from 1st of July next year. They only want to take houses that are for 3 participants. So if it's for 3 participants, it's more to build the extra bedroom. It's obviously a bigger house, so you might need a bigger block of land. So it's going to be a more expensive house as well. You'll get more income, but it's going to be more expensive. So
And is that from July 1st this year, Joe?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Now, some NDIS providers have already started. Others don't care at all. It's only a guideline, and it says in 5 years' time, this is what they want. So because one of the NDIS providers actually gives us a 40-year lease, and the others are giving us 10 years up to 20 years, they're a little bit concerned about what's going to happen 5 years down the track. They want to make sure that our houses are going to be still conform to the rules and regulations 5 years down the track. And it's not really an issue because anything that we sign up today, legislation, the government will pay us the rent for that for the next 20 years. As I said, just remember the NDIS providers are caring, sharing, loving, wonderful people that are most concerned about the welfare of their participants.
Right.
Alrighty. So we see that the rent's actually gone up. So that also tells us that NDIS is not going away. We'll run a little video that shows you what NDIS houses look like and basically why we're paying a whole lot more. You see the video?
Yep.
All right. I just paused it for a sec. Just one sec. Optimize for video clip. So off we'll go again.
There's no sound.
Sorry?
There's no sound if she's speaking.
Okay.
Support a person's life with high-level complex needs and how that can actually make such a difference. And I really want to explore this more.
Can you see it, Rod? I can.
Showcase
Yeah, can you see it?
what
No.
might.
You can't see it.
Yeah, now I can.
Okay.
This is a typical high physical support disabled bathroom where you need hoists and joists and get people, out of their wheelchair into the bath, onto the bed. So you need reinforced walls, you need reinforced ceilings as well. So you'll get an idea why it's to build an NDIS house is roughly twice as much as the cost to build a normal everyday house.
Might work and how they can live and do things that they never thought they could do.
We've basically started to talk to the market to be able to say, here is this new segment and it's disability housing. We need to be able to look at it differently to the way we construct today. It's not a rocket science.
Yeah, so you notice all the way from the footpath, there's no step at all, no lip step, nowhere, including in the bathroom, all the way through the front door, through the garage, typically. It's a lot wider hallway. There's giant doors. There's technology cameras through the house. Obviously, giant bathrooms. Like I said, giant even buttons on the wall.
It is just good design. Once we sit down with the person, the occupational therapist, the care team, I get an understanding of what the house and home.
Electric blinds, electric doors, because people, may not even be able to push buttons. There might be facial recognition on things to stop them getting into some rooms and only getting into their own room.
Needs to look like. Part of the projects that I've also run is things as understanding what home for life means. So as people age, the need changes.
That's another important point these days. When we started, if somebody hits 65, well, they're not in NDIS scheme anymore. They're in the aged care scheme. But some bright sparks sued the government and said you're discriminating on people based on age. So the government goes, oh, you're right. So now somebody can move into this house when they're 20 and they can live in that house until they're 99 years old, until they drop dead. And we still get paid that NDIS rent for the house.
So you try and make the design for future proofing. I also find by going and meeting the client and their families in their own home, it gives me an understanding of what is actually needed for the person that we're building this for.
Specialist disability
This is an entry-level house. So this would be an apartment that's built for somebody that's either low vision, blind, low IQ. They can still sort of look after themselves, make their own lunch. But, you've got lights on the floor, a whole lot of space, technology to help them get around the accommodation.
is really important to me as central to the NDIS because it allows a person to have that chance to have a home, a space, be part of the community and celebrate what they really need to make that life come alive.
So can I ask something? So you know how you put electric doors, this, that, and what happens if all that breaks down and that? Like, who are we paying for that? Like, what? Like if the door doesn't work, or that hoist thing and breaks, and we've got to buy a new one. Is that all on us?
Good question. So there's a couple of different facets to that. We build a house to the minimum specifications, or the NDIS providers specifications as to what they want to see in the house. Anything additional, like electric blinds, that's specific to a person, because that person may not be able to use the blinds or the facilities. So anything that's specifically for them gets paid for by them out of their plan. And the things like your dishwasher, your hot water service, the typical stuff that's in a normal everyday investment property, when that wears out over time, you're responsible for replacing it. Leases, it's documented as to what you're responsible for as well, so there is no confusion. So those NDIS facilities or specifics are typically paid for by the participants who needs them plan. And then you've got the question if something breaks. So because you've got an NDIS provider in that house every single day looking after people, they have a duty of care. If something's broken, damaged, dangerous, they basically just fix it straight away. And then whoever broke it gets charged for it out of their plan. The NDIS money is the plan is what they get paid. A person with a disability gets paid from the government to be looked after and to get all their needs taken care of, all their medical, all their education, all their entertainment comes out of that plan.
And those plans, Joe, you've explained to me can be up to $1 million for a participant, can't they?
Yeah, they can be even more. Correct. That's for sure.
So if it's a standard thing, like, as you say, a dishwasher stops working in a normal investment property, that would be the landlord's cost. But you're saying that basically anything outside those parameters comes out of the participant's plan. That's
right. Or the NDIS provider. Sometimes they can't work out who broke what. It's very difficult to break anything in these houses because the houses are basically indestructible as well.
Right.
So we don't really have that issue at all. And one of the things that people hear about NDIS is the crazy people that are running through your house. But those crazy people belong in the robust category. And to build a robust house for one person is is just as expensive as building a high physical support house for three wheelchair bound people, so that that crazy person cannot damage anything in that house anyway. Doesn't really matter how they try, or even if they bring a gun and shoot it into the glass windows. In a lot of cases, still not going to break at all. It's indestructible, so we don't have to worry about that. And on top of that, we have landlord's insurance anyway. Some people think, well, I don't need it because the NDIS providers insurance, but you would always have landlord's insurance.
How expensive is it in comparison to a normal home?
It's a lot more expensive because we get the top of the line everything. So we get insurance policies with malicious damage in them, which is if somebody does go crazy and deliberately tries to wreck the house. So that's and to answer the question, $3,000 to $4,000 is the insurance policy for the year, with malicious damage and with uninvited guest. So uninvited guest is also another thing that we point out that people are going to need, because you've got visitors, you've got family, you've got friends coming over to these houses all the time as well. And there's a particular mortgage broker that arranges all that for us. So you get all his details, and he'll organise, best quote for people too.
So say, for example, like when we do an investment analysis form for a client, we have, what the rates are, what the insurances are, that sort of thing, which, depending on where it is, can be anything, up to, 5, 6, 7, 8,000. In this case, you'd probably on an annual basis, what would be all your deductibles on say a not a top of the line robust, but the next one down, it'd be quite a bit more, maybe 10 grand more a year than a normal house.
Yeah, because there's a lot more depreciable items in a house like this.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, so if you've got $100,000 worth of fixtures and fittings in a normal everyday house, you're going to have well over $200,000 worth of fixtures and fittings in something like this.
Yeah, the normal 4-bedder we have for normal rental is somewhere around, max 30,000, 20 to 30,000. So you're saying this would be 40 to 60,000 depreciation?
Be more than that as well.
Okay.
Like there's an adjustable bench in the kitchen that costs $7,000 for
Jesus.
Alrighty.
Can I just ask before I forget? When you said that there's a lease in place, how long is that lease for?
Depends on the NDIS provider. So the minimum of any of the leases that we have these days is 10 years up front, and then it'll have 5-year options after that.
With the way the NDIS is set up, they're always going to want these houses, so the leases will be renewed. But what's their option? They wouldn't want to not renew a lease because that's taking away their capacity, isn't it? Yeah.
The NDIS providers make money out of every one of these houses. Like Rod was saying before, a plan can be $1 million. So a plan can actually be up to $2.5 million. So one of
you cut out then? You cut out. Can you just repeat that?
Yeah. So a plan, which is what the person with the disability gets, can be up to $2.5 million for somebody with severe issues in a wheelchair. And if you think an NDIS provider, their profit might be 30 to 40% of that, if they could get a couple of people in a house, 2 people in a house with $1 million worth of funding each, that's a $2 million business that they've got sitting in that house. They're making 40% profit on it. So they're making whatever it is, $800,000 a year out of that house. So now you sort of start to understand why they want to give us a lease, and they want us to get these people into a house urgently, because once the people are in the house, they basically do not move.
So the government's happy to pay out deals with a 40% profit to the provider.
Sorry, say that again.
Well, the government basically, on what you've just said here, is is agreeable to providers earning 40%, which is an awful lot of profit margin, isn't it?
Yeah. Now, in the Royal Commission, also in December, there was a budget review. All right, so the Treasurer Farmers come along and said, for every dollar that we spend on NDIS, the Australian economy makes 2.5. And you see a spreadsheet?
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So if we have a look at that, sort of explains why the government is happy to spend lots and lots of money on NDIS and why they're never going to turn it off. So every time we build a house, we've got to pay stamp duty on the land. In Victoria, it's about 5%.
Yeah.
Got to pay GST on the material, and all these houses cost about the same, anywhere from $600,000 to $700,000, somewhere in there.
Which is basically twice your normal, yeah. Okay.
Yep. We've got the plasterer, the finance guy, the concreter, all right, all working on the house. And if everybody's job, is one after the other, and it takes a year to get the house built, then there's $25,000 worth of PAYG taxes that the government generated just by building the house, or the building industry generated. If you think we've got 2 people in that house who require 24-hour care, that means 3 8-hour shifts. Each one of those people now needs 3 full-time workers looking after them. So that's 6 full-time workers per day that are running through that house. Nobody can work 7 days a week, so you need another couple of people at least. So there's a minimum of 8 full-time jobs created every time we build a house. And, and then, of course, you've got the bus drivers, you've got the plan manager that's organising their finance, you've got the person that schedules the appointments that they've got to go to, and then, of course, everybody that, is looking after the medical side of things on top of that, on top of the carers as well. So it's quite easily 8, 10 full-time jobs for every house that gets built. So that's also a huge bottleneck. Even if we build 20 houses, would mean there's another 200 staff that's got to be employed to look after those people in those houses. So that's not going to happen in a lot of areas, and that's one of these bottlenecks as to why we should be doing this as soon as we possibly can, because once we're in and our participants are being looked after, then the staff are not as likely to go leave. The participants can't leave. If they go to another house, who's going to look after them in the other house anyway? We have a shortage of staff in this particular area, and that's one reason why we deal with the biggest NDIS providers as well. So you've got all that PAYG, you've got tax, the investor, because if they just went and added $200,000 worth of income to their everyday income, they're going to lose $60,000, $80,000 in tax straight up. Put it in a family trust, they may be able to reduce the tax a fair bit. But everything is way cash flow positive, and you're going to be paying more tax when you've got NDIS properties than what you are at the moment. Even if the turnover on that house was only $1 million, there's $400,000 gross profit, any tax rate. There's at least $100,000 that the government makes from the NDIS provider from running that house. So there's no way that the government could not have made more than $400,000 out of a house that we built. And the government's only giving you $3,000, $5,000 a week. So to us, that's an enormous amount of money. But they've already got twice that money back in their pocket. And on top of that, this person's not sitting in a hospital costing $14,000 to $20,000 a week to be looked after, to be fed, share of the wages, etc. So it also means that the government saved at least $750,000 a year just in accommodation costs, and it's push that out to the private sector to run it.
So why is it, Joe, then that you get headlines that the NDIS is going to be the biggest cost to the government when it appears here they should be making a profit out of it?
Yeah, they are making a profit out of it, and it is the biggest cost. So
Amazing.
So this is why we're always telling people it's the best investment in the world, because it's win-win. Whichever way you look at it, it's completely sustainable. The government's pumping more and more money into it. 2 years ago, 2 years ago, I think there was more money being spent on the NDIS than what there was on Medicare. So 23, $24 billion. We're already up to $32 billion a year. By 2032, they'll be spending $115 billion a year on it. And we're getting our slice of that because it's just a complete win-win all the way around. We're providing jobs. Carers that are working in these houses, wiping somebody's backside at 3 o'clock in the morning might be getting paid $85 an hour. During the day, they might be getting $35 an hour. A lot of those people have never earned more than $20 an hour before. So, they're making their money. They've got a lot better job. It's a fulfilling job in a lot of cases, helping people out. My Indian customers love this because it's just such wonderful, good karma. You're helping people, you're getting paid a lot of money for it. The government's making money out of it. Whichever way you look at it, there's nobody disadvantaged. Every single person is making money, is happy with this investment, which is very unusual. The tenants are happy that they've got a brand new place that's custom designed for them, latest technology, latest features, plenty of space, warm and comfortable, no overcrowding. They love it. The families love it as well because, now they've got a bathroom where they can actually wash them or get them in and out of the bath without risking breaking their neck. It's all round win-win-win all the way around, which is another reason why we like it and will help me get into heaven.
So if we custom something for someone, what happens if something happens to them and they're no longer here for some reason?
Yeah, so that happens, and it's already happened because a lot of these people are not too healthy. So if they go back to hospital or if they die, then the government realizes there's a fair chance of that happening. So they actually pay us rent for the next 3 months, even though there might be nobody else in that house, while we get somebody else to go into the house.
Any issue with getting a replacement?
No. We had one house in...
What happens if it doesn't match their criteria 100%? Do we have to then start making changes or?
Not you, because you've built the house to the NDIS specifications, but there's always going to be changes, or especially on the technology side of things. So there's voice activated this or touch activated that. It's one of the reasons why it can take a month for somebody to move into the house, because they've actually got to get all that technology and their individual items installed in the house for them.
Have you had any experiences where houses owned by Joe, for example, have been empty and not paid for any period of time?
Yep. Yeah. So you remember COVID, right?
Yep.
So COVID screwed up our plans in a major way for a lot of people, and people that bought houses 4 years ago have in some cases only recently now got people into those houses. So when you say like we've had NDIS providers that have given us a lease before COVID, and by the time COVID came along, they were no longer COVID was over. They were no longer NDIS providers. They weren't looking after anybody in the area, so we had vacancies in houses. Every single house that has been built has participants in it now. So there is no vacancy from any of the houses that have been completed. The COVID is like really odd situation, of course. But yeah, it did take 4 years for houses to get built. And then things were completely different. In 99% of cases, with every house that we're recommending now, there is actually a lease and participants waiting to move in. So as of, since the middle of last year, there is no vacancy on any house that's being built. Before that, completely different story. Some houses, might have taken 3 months to get first participant in. That's been about it. So everybody's got a participant these days. Those existing houses, and it's not really relevant.
If COVID came again, Joe, there would be a situation. If you were having a house being built, you could end up when the house is finished, there couldn't be anybody, or do you see that they've probably got plans in place to deal with another COVID situation from the NDIS point of view? The providers
completely irrelevant these days, because we've already got a lease and we've already got participants waiting, and I'll touch on that, with the nursing homes and stuff in a minute. Yep. The difference with COVID-19 was that when we started doing this, what we would do, like I said, is we would drive around the country. We would go to an area where we knew it was having above average capital growth, because we used to think, we need to make capital growth on the property. So we need to buy in an area that's having capital growth. And that's the way we've always invested for, 120 years in Australia, is trying to pick an area that's having above average capital growth. Now, that's completely irrelevant for NDIS, but that's how we started. So we were buying Terry Ryder's hotspotting reports, working out which areas were having the highest capital growth. We were driving to that area. We were knocking on the door of the local NDIS providers and saying, give us a lease. Have you got any, people with disability? We'll build a house for them, but we need a lease from you so our investors are safe. So that's what we were doing. And then we would go to the builders and we would explain it all to the builders and get them to build it and show it all the way through. So some of those NDIS providers that we went and knocked on their doors just didn't exist after COVID. All right. And so it was just a completely different way of doing things. And in some cases, we didn't bother about getting leases from anybody because we knew what a huge demand there was in the area. And then we would just let them fight it out at the end as to who would give us, our investors, the best offer to rent that house from them at the end. So it was a completely different world than what we were doing before COVID. It was a bit more like a traditional investment, trying to pick capital growth, etc. These days, because we've been successful, because we've got a lot of investors, because we've got good relationships with a few of the NDIS providers, they just tell us what they need. In a lot of cases, they've got their own builders because there's a whole lot of criteria on the builders. You just can't use any builder at all. And so they just tell us, go get this house sold for us, and the tenancy is completely irrelevant these days. Just to further explain that just a little bit, here I'll show you another spreadsheet, and what we've changed the way in which we do things. So we think that, let me share. So like I said, once upon a time, me and business partner were driving around the country. But these days, we've got a list of stock. I'll show you what stock's available as well. And there'll be better areas than others, and there'll be higher returns than others as well. So we can always pick, what's going to give us the greatest return. Can you see a spreadsheet that says immediate capital growth up on the left here? Yeah. All right. So if we look at this, the cheapest property we can get these days is about $700,000. Income, let's say $750,000 house over in Murray Bridge, South Australia. That should give us about $170,000 a year in income. So and being a commercial lease, if the lender said, you know, that's a 10% cap rate, then based on the lease that's coming in there, that property is worth $1.7 million. So we've paid $750,000 for it. If it's in a metropolitan area, we've got multiple finance companies will value it based on a 7% cap rate. So once the house is complete, once the money's going into the bank, once you might have done your tax returns or your BAS statements or whatever else is involved in this, if we went to a typical commercial lender, it was in a metropolitan area, they're going to value it at about $2.4 million. So let's just say 10% to be ultra conservative, because a lot of investors want more than a 7% return these days anyway, because, you know, that's 8% is what the interest rates they're probably getting slugged are anyway. So they're going to want to make, you know, at least some slight profit on the property itself. But if it's complete, all those other criteria, commercial valuation 1.7, you only paid $750. Even if the lender only gave you a 60% lend, you can redraw up to $1 million. So you've actually got your deposit back that it cost you to buy this thing, and you've got another $270,000. So we don't give a shit about what's going on in capital growth in any of these areas where we're investing, because we're manufacturing our own capital growth based on this being a commercial investment, which it is anyway, normal residential house, obviously. And that redraw of the excess funds is a deposit to go and buy another one. Plus you've got your deposit back from the first one. So every year or two, because the income needs to come in, you could be coming and buying another one of these properties out of the revaluation and the immediate capital growth that we're getting out of these things. So in a normal everyday investment property, you know, the value of the property is doubling every 7 to 10 years. Here, we're really doubling the value of the property in the first year or two. And then because the value of the property relies upon the income, you know, it might take 20 years for it to double again, because the NDIS increases the rent based on whatever the inflation figure was that year. So every year we're going to get an increase in rent. We're going to get an increase in the value of the property based on inflation. But forget about capital growth, because you're getting your capital growth in the first year or two. So you don't have to wait 7 or 10 years to buy another property. Every year you can use that capital growth to go and buy another property from us. And people have done this. So people that have bought properties from us when we started have refinanced them and gone and bought another 3 at no cost to them as well. Does that make sense?
Being commercial loans, you've got to work through specialist brokers, but it's all a valid operating system.
Definitely. Yeah, and any of the big 4 banks, right, once they see the income, the fact that you've got a 20-year lease, very, very straightforward to get finance on it. Government's paying the rent, they don't care about you, all right? You know, what you're doing, what your job's like, how many hours a week you work, you know, they see the income.
They don't even need your pay slips.
Not real fast, to put it that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who manages the builds?
Good question. So on the build side of things, there's very limited builders that can build it. And the NDIS providers are, in some cases, they oversee the building directly, because the builders that are used have a limit as to, there's a couple of things with builders. Number one is that each NDIS provider has their favorite builders. because they've done the job in the past. They build what's required. All the houses are the same, so the staff can go from one house to another and they know exactly where everything is. Everything's identical. The builders know where their bread's buttered, and they look after these NDIS providers spectacularly well. The NDIS providers are on top of the build as well and manage that build, to answer the question, because when they've got a participant, the participant has finance approved, but that finance expires every 12 months. So if the house is not completed within 12 months, the finance or the accommodation budget for that particular person expires, and then the NDIS provider's got to pay somebody, one of their staff, to go and put in an application for finance all over again, which can take 6 months to 12 months to get approved in the NDIS. So the NDIS provider says, I'm only using these builders. Those builders are only allowed to build 100 houses in each state per year, so that they don't get overloaded. They'll finish the houses within a set period of time, and the finance approval from the participant waiting to go in is not going to expire as well. So the NDIS provider's on the build, we're on the build as well, because we get paid over, sometimes over 4 stages of it getting built, to make sure everything's happening as well.
And is there any upkeep fee, like, I don't know, painting or anything that has to be done, after 2 or 3 years? Is anything like that?
Yeah. At the end of the lease, so usually the 10-year, the first lease, to make provision in the lease, usually, where the NDIS provider has to recarpet, repaint, make as new. Not you. So that's more like the commercial side of things as well. All right. If I zip back to the presentation to explain, we know that there's demand. All right. When people started talking about NDIS way back, I thought there'd be 28,000 people. Before COVID came along, was already 122,000 people needed accommodation by 2020. Then, of course, COVID came along, and you had all those people that were sitting in nursing homes under 65 that had to get out because so many people were dropping dead in nursing homes. The government told us that all our hospitals were going to be overrun, so they wanted everybody out of the hospitals because it was expected to fill up with COVID patients. And of course, we had no tourism. So what they did is they just put all these 6,000 plus, it was a lot more than that, young people under 65 sitting in a nursing home. They put them into hotels, and the people that were sitting in hospital got put into hotels as well. That big scam in Victoria. And it's pretty much still going on as well, because there is no accommodation for a lot of these people until we build enough houses. So COVID was really, really good for NDIS. Got everybody out of the hospitals, out of the aged care facilities, into temporary accommodation. So from our point of view as an investor, we've got a whole pool of people waiting for accommodation to come. The waiting list is not going down. We see that from the growing expense of NDIS, but of course, who looks after these people? Usually they've been looked after by their family, but of course their family gets older as time goes by. Family can't look after themselves, let alone some disabled 50-year-old child as well. And like I said before, we were terrified the government was going to turn it off, but once we look at the mathematics and we look at the increase in rent, we know that they're not turning off NDIS at all. So that's really good for us. And so therefore, when we keep saying, it's the best investment in the world, it's in legislation. We get a house registered, under today's rules and regulations, we're going to get paid rent for 20 years at the current rates, which are huge. government's only increasing the rent anyway, and it goes up based on inflation. There's a bit of a video that was done in the middle of COVID, which shows that the government were actually very impressive. They hired thousands of extra public servants, and they got accommodation for all these people, and public housing waiting list went down to about 1 month in some cases, instead of 5 years, like it's been in New South Wales and other places. We can work out exactly what the demand is in a particular area, and we used to have to do that, but now all completely irrelevant. This presentation, Joe, if you did want to have a look at it, it's got all the links to the government websites, and there's a place. Everything to do with the NDIS is on the government website. So I'm just flipping over to the demand map. So we're just saying that you don't need to believe a word that we say at all. Let's have a look. So the government website, everything's explained. There's an investors section, there's participants section, but whereabouts in New South Wales do you live?
In Wollongong.
Wollongong. Alrighty. So if we flip to Wollongong, we can see that you can see that in your area,
Yep.
Wollongong. All right.
Yep.
Participants with SDA funding in use. So there's 75 of them that are spending their money on accommodation. There's 47 of them that have got money, but they're not using it, which tells you that they've got no houses. Okay. Additional participants eligible. So yeah, so there's around your area, 123 people have already got finance to live somewhere. Now, because there's no houses, by the look of that, that would also tell you that it's a pointless exercise, them going and doing 6 months worth of paperwork and application forms to apply for a house that doesn't exist.
Yep.
Okay, so that's a catch-22. So the government, that data shows us that there's a shortage of accommodation in your area, but you can also guarantee there'd be dozens of other people that would put in an application if a house actually existed as well.
So what areas do you guys build or are selling at the...
we do look all over Australia, and it's always a moving target because you're only ever going to build half a dozen houses in an area at a time. The areas of greatest demand at the moment are regional areas, because in Sydney CBD you've got the Salvation Army, you've got Anglicare, you've got Brotherhood of St. Lawrence, you've got big organisations like that that'll take a whole lot of apartments and house people. So areas like Mildura, Country Victoria up on the Murray there, other side of town, other side of the river, huge demand. Renmark in South Australia, which is also attached to Mildura, about an hour from there. That's got some of the highest demand for people at the moment. There's demand everywhere, really. And usually we're looking to build close to hospitals. There's plenty of demand in New South Wales, but it's just the land is so much more expensive in New South Wales.
Yeah.
There's huge demand there. Like if you go and build in, I don't know, Castle Hill or somewhere like that, it's $300,000 a year in rent, but a block of land is going to cost $2.5 million. So the house costs you exactly the same to build, right? But so you've spent $3 million. There's an enormous demand, but you're getting $300,000 a year in rent. So what we'd say to you is you're a lot better to go and buy a block of land in Mildura for $200,000 and get $180,000 a year in rent.
Yep.
Because, you know, the house is only costing you $950,000 and you can buy 3 of them instead. So that's also part of our calculations as to, you know, what's the best place to invest at any one particular time as well.
And if you wanted to sell it one day for some reason, you had to sell it, how do you go about selling it?
Yeah, very easy. There's actually quite a demand for people to buy these sort of things, and we're actually competing against super funds, because a super fund is not allowed to get a construction loan. They can't go and buy a block of land and get something built, but they can buy something that's completed. So any of these houses that is completed, very easy to sell. And I've got an example right this very second where there's 19 apartments that have been completed, and we've got 1 week to sell them before a super fund goes and buys every one of them from one of our NDIS providers. So the NDIS provider has got them built because they need accommodation, right? And they've grabbed property so that it didn't get sold to somebody else. But legally, they're not allowed to hold a property and also have a participant in it. That's a conflict of interest. So they've actually got to sell those properties to an investor. And there are funds, super funds, investment funds that will buy every single completed house that we can build, and they're buying them at, you know, they want as high a return as possible, and they're spending up to 12-15% return. So they're paying whatever a 12-15% return will get on those properties. So it's really easy, really, really easy. That's for sure. And that's our competitor, or your competitor. You know, I was having a whinge this morning that I was up at 7:30 on a Sunday morning taking somebody out for breakfast, all right, driving them off to the airport on a Sunday morning, because I'm grabbing him and corrupting him to give me the stock and not just go and give it to Macquarie Bank and these other big funds that are buying 7 at a time. Minimum, they've bought 7 at a time, 30 at a time. These 19 apartments, they'll buy those if I don't sell him. So I've persuaded them, you know, just give us a week with these apartments. And that's what I just emailed to you, Rod, this morning as well.
So can we buy that one of them in our super fund, Rod, or no?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. There's 2 things with the super fund. One is we can buy any house and land package that we like, but we've got to get intermediate finance. So what that means is that there's a finance company that will buy the land for you. It will make all the repayments while the house is getting built. It'll charge you $10,000 fee for the service. It'll charge you all the interest that they've been charged. And then when the house is complete, they'll sell it to your super fund. All right. So that's one way of doing it. And by the time you add up their fees, the holding costs, you're paying stamp duty on the land that they'll just pass on to you when you buy it, and stamp duty at the end when it's complete. It's going to cost you about $100,000 more to get that property into your super fund, which is not surprising because, you know, it costs you not quite that much to, you know, build a property anyway, because you're making repayments on the land, you're making the interest, you're paying the stamp duty anyway. So that's worthwhile doing. Having said that, we've got some apartments which start at about $700,000. They're complete, and you would only need a 20% deposit there, so $140,000, $150,000 plus some stamp duty, and then you'd be getting $110,000, $120,000 a year in income, and they would be perfect for a super fund. Because you only need a 20% deposit plus stamp duty to get those ones in. And you're not waiting. They're completed as well.
So, and can I ask another question? How do you get paid?
Yeah, good question. So we get paid by the builder. typically. On those apartments, we're just like a normal everyday real estate agent, that we pick those ones up. So, you know, we make our percent on that. And that's what I said at the start, we're a bit like a buyer's advocate. So we're running around operating on your best interests. We are usually harassing multiple builders for best deals. However, when we're dealing directly with the NDIS provider who tells us what they want and where they want it, they've already got their 3, you know, different quotes from the builders, and they've already harassed the builders for a best price as well. So dealing with us, it's actually cheaper to buy than it is directly going to the builder. A lot of it's to do with volume. 2, the builder doesn't have to talk to anybody. He just sees an email come through that says build this in this particular area. And the government reports, you can see another purple spreadsheet there, hopefully. It tells you, I've already mentioned how much it costs to buy one of these houses, to build one of these houses in the $600,000, $700,000 mark. If you have a look at what NDIS says, the government experts have calculated what I'm telling you is $700,000 to build. They've calculated at about $1.1 million to build it. So
we don't have a spreadsheet up. We still have the SDA demand data.
Okay, let me share.
And do you have an example of a house that's available now to show us?
Yes. Yeah. Yep. All right. So the government tells us it's costing about 1.1 million. Alrighty, to build what you guys can buy from me for $700,000. Okay. There's no issue with valuation, with getting finance at all, and also therefore, you know, that capital growth. We've sort of got that done from day one.
So as well as your strong cash flow, you are going to accumulate capital growth over time anyway as an adjunct, aren't you?
You're going to get it up front, first year or 2. Yep.
But you'll still get it going on in the future.
You will, but we want you to get it up front so you can come back and buy another one and get paid again.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah.
I'm with you. So
Yeah,
that 750 that you said with a 20% deposit, which is 150 plus stamp duty around about 30,000, that's 180,000 plus incidentals another 10,000. You probably could get to a point where you need 200,000 to secure one of these things that you're talking about at 750 that's ready to go.
Correct. That'll do it.
And that can go into your super fund.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if we build a house and land package, the finance company that gets them built for you wants over a 30% deposit. So, you know, the normal house, by the time you add their fees to it all and the stamp duties and etc., you're going to be spending you know about $1 million. So you're going to need at least $300,000 in your super fund to get a normal house and land NDIS property there.
To put it in your super fund.
In super.
Yeah, but it's cheaper if you just do it through an equity situation in your trust or something.
Much.
Yeah.
Much cheaper.
Yeah.
However, I would always tell people to buy it in their super as well, because when you compare what people's super's doing, you know, the share market's at about the same level as what it was 10 years ago. So there's no real capital growth there. Obviously, you've got leverage as well. So if you've got 300,000 in super and you've got $1 million asset giving you $200,000 a year in income, you've tied up 300. So whatever that return is, the phone's on silent, but the phone's connected to the laptop. So it's a huge return just from a cash flow point of view. But then we've seen that we've got the immediate capital growth as well. So you've tied up 300, but you've made 600. You know, you made a 200% capital growth on the amount of money that's been tied up. you've made cash flow returns as well. So a lot of people will just sell after a couple of years in super, get the deposits for another couple, and then buy another couple as well, because there's also less capital gains tax in super funds typically as well. Joe, we basically only build 2 types of properties. There's 4 different categories, but if we build a high physical support house, then you can also put somebody who's wheelchair bound, a fully accessible funding, and an improved livability person in that house as well. So that's the usual house that we're building, and we term it build to rent. So you're building a house. Once it's done, it's just going to get rented out. Very straightforward. The rent there, it's a minimum of 100. Those apartments, the rent's about $120,000 a year. If it's a house and land package, then the rent is about a minimum of 170 up to about 210,000 a year in that category. But we've also got another option, which is robust. And robust is where we get about $5,000 a week in rent, 250 grand a year. But it's not rent, it's profit share. So because no investors wanted a crazy person running around their house and trying to burn it down, no investors were putting those houses. So because it costs the same to build that house as what it costs to build a high physical support house, but at least in a high physical support house, you could have 3 people, 3 rooms, $45,000 a room, plus the bit of extra income. You're getting expecting $150,000 a year. The minimum was $100,000 a year. But in robust, you can only have 1 crazy person in the house. So that's 1 room getting rented. That's $50,000 a year. So we went to one of the biggest NDIS providers in Australia and said, obviously you've got a shortage of accommodation and you're always going to have that. Come up with a better deal. So they basically came up with a profit share deal where every cent that house generates, we get 40% of the net profit. So we've sort of touched on the income that the NDIS providers make. They're making their 40% return or more, because the carers might be getting paid $35 an hour during the day. They might be getting paid $85 an hour at night or on the weekend. But for every hour that they're getting paid, the NDIS provider is invoicing the government. A doctor's going to come along and, he might be getting paid $200 an hour by the NDIS provider, but the NDIS provider is going to invoice the government $350 for a visit. You might do a couple of visits an hour. So all that profit that gets generated, take somebody to the rugby, take them shopping, you invoice the government, have art classes, have physiotherapy. That's a schedule. Same as Medicare. The doctors, the NDIS providers send off the schedule and invoice the government, and we get a share of that profit. So those houses generate around $250,000 worth of profit for investor. So that's another option for you as well. A lot of people just don't like it because they don't want to go into business with somebody. But, the other half of people love it because it's the same price to build that house as a other house, but you're making an extra $50,000 a year in rent as well. So that'll be one of your options, and I'll show you those options in a second. We know the problems with NDIS. It costs you twice as much. It used to take a lot longer to build them than a normal house, but these days we've solved all those problems by limiting how many builders the builders can build in any area. And one of those builders, we started selling stock for them in September, and by the middle of December we'd sold their 100 houses, so they weren't allowed to build any more for that NDIS provider. we're also limited from just resources from the builder point of view. And of course, when we started, we were terrified that, you know, we'd build a house and there'd be nobody to move into it, but that's completely irrelevant these days as well, through us. There's a calculator that tells you how much rent you're going to get, and that calculator comes directly from the government, so it's nothing that I invent, that, you know, Rod's made up. It's all directly from the government, and therefore you know exactly what you can expect as far as income goes. And, you know, everything's a drop-down box. If it's an old property, if it's a new property, how many people are going to be in the house. So if, let's say, we build a house for 3 residents, it's the high physical support. There's always on-site overnight assistance. We always put fire sprinklers in these houses nowadays. If it's high physical support, this is one of the areas that's in the greatest demand, South Australia. So the government's paying us $57,000 a room. We also get a bit of extra money because the participant pays 25% of their pension, and we also, because they're a low income earner being on a pension, we also get the Commonwealth Government rental assistance. So we end up getting an extra $11,000 on top of the rent. There's 3 sources of income with NDIS. There's the rent, but then we get another couple of sources of income. So you're ending up with over $200,000 a year in income for one of these houses that we've got in South Australia in highest areas of demand. And then, you know, if I pick Wollongong, let's say we went to New South Wales and we, so what shire is Wollongong or area?
Keep going. It's Illawarra. Does it say Illawarra? The Illawarra.
Yes. Yeah. If we go to Illawarra, all right, well, it must be either more demand or land is a lot more expensive in Wollongong than what it is in regional South Australia.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Yeah. So you're actually getting paid more. There's a location factor that says you get the basic rent plus an extra 4%. That would mean if we built exactly that same house in Wollongong, where we're getting an extra $20,000 a year, $126,000 a year in rent.
Probably cost you 200,000 more in land costs, though.
Yeah. All right. So you got to wait 10 years for your payback. All right. With it. So we can see that, we can work all that out as to where the best places to invest are. But remember, there's a whole lot of other.
What areas do you guys just build in South Australia, or like where?
No, we're all over Australia.
Oh, so you can build in Wollongong. If I said I want Wollongong, you could find Wollongong. Is that right?
As long as you're going to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and wipe somebody's backside, you can have it. So I can tell you that I'm not going to be doing it. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we definitely look around your area because there's an enormous demand. Alrighty.
But just looking at the figures, it has to be that the lower the land price you can get is the area to go to.
Typically, yes.
Yeah.
Around New South Wales, the blocks of land that we've been buying are like $700,000. Okay. Yeah.
That's a $1.2 million bill, though, or more.
It's more. Correct.
It'll be 1.5.
Yeah, close enough. All righty. The rent's about $300,000. There you see 220. So rent's good. So if you actually already had blocks of land, right, or an old house, we would look at that first. All right. But then we've got to go to the NDIS provider and get it approved as well. So that might take 3 months for them to get it approved. It might take 3 minutes to say, yes, we'll take that house. So we would not build anything until we had a lease organised for, your area, your land, whatever else you're thinking of doing, which we can do as well. But we're all over the country. And there's some really good places to be investing, and I'll give you some examples in a sec as well. All this shows is that the Government's got everything organised. We don't need to get involved in it at all. We just need the lease to make sure it's all going to happen. Tony, you were talking about cash flows before. We can do the property investment analysis software. Put in how much the rent's going to be, put in how much the interest rate is, put in what the insurance costs are, and we can tell you exactly how much money is going to hit your bank account depending on what name you're purchasing. Are you purchasing a company, a trust, etc., personal names, therefore different tax rates? We can calculate all that for you down to the the last dollar. All the leases are different NDIS providers. You'll have a look at what that is up front. And then we've just got the the links to the appropriate places on the government website, because whenever we first start talking to people about that, all we ever hear is it's too good to be true, it's too good to be true. So that's why all the proof is there for people to have a look at themselves. If we have a look at a couple of different what's available, now there's a couple of apartments. Usually we hate apartments. However, these things are complete, and the super are a fantastic idea. We only need a 20% deposit in super. Because they're complete, you're not paying money out of your pocket for nothing. And they're in St. Mary's, New South Wales, where there is a big demand. We've already got the NDIS provider. These have come from the NDIS provider, who's said that we can have them. There's 19, a few of them have already been sold. If we have a look at what the costs and returns are, we know there's demand as well. Just under $700,000 for a high physical support property. Then we're up into the 760s, 730s for 2-bedroom high physical support. So that would give us, as far as rent goes, with very often only put one person in an apartment. So the rent is over the $110,000 mark there. So if you think it might cost you, whatever Rob was saying, 180 grand a year, one of those things, we're getting 110, 120. Usually the NDIS provider takes about 15% of the rent as their management fee. Then there's going to be things like body corporate, that sort of stuff. So we've actually worked out what the gross return is and what the net returns are there. Everything nets, over the 12% mark roughly. And the income's pretty good. For a $700,000 property, getting whatever it is, $80,000, $90,000 a year clear into your super fund, that's huge income, and there's nothing like it. The normal everyday investment property is probably giving us 4 or 5% returns these days, before expenses. So I've emailed this whole list off to Rod, so you can have a bit more of a look at it. And that's we've had completed properties twice in 5 years. All right. So it really only happens when the NDIS provider has bought something, but because he's got the demand, just to stop it going to the market and somebody else buying the accommodation. And so this is just another example of that. So that's all there. Then we'll have a look at the typical house and land properties. Let's have a look.
So how you said after July 1 or whatever this year they want 3 bedders? Is that just for houses, not for apartments?
Correct. Yeah. Just for new stuff getting built. Apartments are completely different. We typically don't do too much with apartments. However, the theory is the same with apartments. It might be a little bit harder to revalue up an apartment based on the cash flow, but we haven't tried that. So, all right. Now, these are some of the profit share properties that are available at the moment. And you know Melbourne very well, Joe?
Yeah, I know where the city is. I know where Brunswick is. That's it.
All right.
We're still on the same screen, but has it moved? Have you changed it?
No, I'm just trying to load up some examples. Find them. Things sell pretty quickly. That's just the trick. So
how many of you selling the same property?
Sorry?
How many? Like, is there a couple of different companies that are selling the same house and land?
Yeah. So with the profit share, there's about 6 companies that the same as Capital Investment Ideas and Rod's company that are running around selling these properties. Probably not 6, maybe sort of 3 of them that are active. All right, so can you see a picture of a house there? Yeah. All right. So, and there's very limited stock. So after the Royal Commission in December, we've had no stock from this particular NDIS provider, who is Cocoon. So Cocoon is the biggest NDIS provider for robust people in Australia. So what they did is they had to think what sort of houses they wanted based on the recommendations for 5 years down the track. Then they had to go to their builders and get all those houses quoted again. And then we had to wait for the builders to quote us. The builders had to go find bigger blocks of land to put a bigger house on, etc. And they decided that they're not going to wait around. They still need these 2-bedroom, 2-participant houses, 2-participant, still 3-bedroom houses. So we've still got half a dozen, we'll have a few more coming in the next couple of months of these to sell. So,
this is part of Ballarat.
Yeah, so Winter Valley, Ballarat. All right, so regional Victoria, 1.5 hours out of the city. We like the regional areas because the land's only $200,000. The building price is about the same. So whatever that is, nearly $600,000 worth of build price. It's relatively cheap, which is what gives us the huge, return. That'll be a 30% return on your money for a place in Ballarat, and it's both a robust house and a high physical support. So that means that they can put. And when I keep saying crazy people, I get slapped by the NDIS providers because there's not a whole lot of crazy people running around these houses. It's very often people just with a brain injury, depression as well. COVID caused a whole lot of depression. Here in Victoria, you weren't allowed to go and see your mum, your friends, or go to work, but you could go to a brothel. And so
Thought of everything.
That just drove everybody crazy. And putting up with Dan Andrews as well. So a lot of these depressed people, they're not even going to hurt themselves if they fall off a couch, really. And yeah, that's a bargain, to build
that particular property is to be built, is it?
Everything's to be built, house and land.
Right.
Yeah, nobody resells these properties. Nobody sells completed properties.
Right.
Okay. The only other time we've had completed properties was where the NDIS provider bought them, and then had to, because he didn't want them to go to anybody else, and then he had to sell them.
Yeah, trouble with that is you got double stamp duty when they do that.
Correct. So this is a bit more like it. Armstrong Creek is Geelong. It's about 1.5 hours out of Melbourne as well. Geelong is the headquarters of the NDIS, and and we always have a bit of a laugh as to, you know, NDIS people, or, you know, people that are not quite right living in Geelong, you know, supporting their football team.
But
Right?
this shows here the extra cost to land there. It's jumped up 100,000, hasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So the building is still under that $600,000 mark. So it's still great price on building for a robust and a high physical support house. Now I've done a walkthrough from one of our customers' houses, and I'll text or email or get that across to you, Rod, as well. So you can actually, it takes maybe 10 minutes to walk through it, but once you've seen one of these things in real life, you can see where all the money goes. And
So what's this one?
Anything currently in Murray Bridge area at all?
Yeah, so in Murray Bridge, we have a bit of a difficulty with land.
Right.
So land, there's a shortage of land that's suitable. All right. So typically the block has to be perfectly flat. That's the first thing.
Yes.
But it needs to be near facilities. It needs to be as close to a hospital as possible, public transport, you know, these carers that are coming, you know, and looking after people in the house. A lot of them don't drive. A lot of them are, I wouldn't say new migrants, but, you know, migrants to the country, all that sort of thing, doing a caring job. So they need public transport, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
We also need appropriate water pressure too for the sprinkler systems in these houses, which has been a great problem with lots of blocks of land in new estates in recent times.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So there's a whole...
We've even had that just for the lawn irrigation water pressure.
Yeah. So it's a big problem for NDIS because you got these, you know, disabled people that can't jump out of bed and, you know, jump through a window when the fire, you know, starts. And the poor little Filipino nurses can't be dragging, you know, these big fat Aussies out of bed and down the hallway either. So in Murray Bridge, we can get a high physical support house for about $750,000.
Yeah.
The income is about $180,000 a year.
Yeah.
But it's just a matter of when is the land going to title.
Right.
So they do exist. The land's not going to title until the middle of the year. Yeah. And even then, I probably don't believe the builder because we've got a few houses in Murray Bridge and the land is 6 months overdue with no, you know, guarantee of when it's going to title.
Why are you asking about Murray Bridge, Rod?
It's a typical regional area with strong demand, and the land's not too expensive yet. Yeah, you can pick up blocks sub 200,000, and as long as it meets the criteria for NDIS, it's the most economic way for you to invest into it. You know, the cheaper the land, the better the deal, but taking into account also what sort of return. But I think it'd be fair to say, Joe, wouldn't it, that if you can save the money on the land, in most cases, that'll give you the best bottom line.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Now, because the land's been so cheap in Murray Bridge, there's been a lot of houses built there as well.
Yeah, I can understand that. That was the reason I do investment properties, you know, just standard equity properties. I've got a very strong connection with a developer down there, and it's very good value. You can't. It's the best value in Australia.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
You know, so I think we got some.
Hence the question. That was all.
Yeah, I think we got some blocks of land, $120,000-$140,000 there when we started.
Yep.
You know, a year ago.
It's gone from 100 to 150, 175 in about 18 months.
Yeah. So
can you do me a favor? Just quickly go back to because my wife's just on a lunch break. You're not on your break. Just to show the apartments, just quickly. Sorry, Joe.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah.
Let's have a look.
Sorry, Rod. Tammy.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
And that's Joe.
Hello.
That's Joe. We already told Joe what happens if he's getting me into a deal here.
Yeah, we're sending a picture of the garage.
Yeah, actually, we're getting recorded, Rod. So yeah, we'll just invite him around. Have you got?
All right, so that's in St. Mary's.
It's available now, St. Mary's.
Yeah. So these things exist. So if you actually wanted to go and walk through one or have a look, that's also a possibility. The NDIS provider that we deal with is based in Sydney for these, and they're out there all the time getting these sort of things organised. So that's something you can actually touch and hug at the moment, which is unlike any of the other investors. And this would be wonderful for super funds as well. They've got a waiting list for people out there. And then it tells us what the demand is that came off that demand map that we had a look at before. But it's
What's
the whole
funds?
So say again, sorry.
So what's the lease on these apartments like that we're signing?
20 years.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. So they give us a 10-year lease and then 2 5-year options from this particular NDIS provider.
So let's say at the 10 years that they say, no, we don't want it, then what happens?
Nobody really cares because there'll be plenty of other SDA providers that manage the property that will take it. And then you've got an NDIS provider that looks after the person or their carers. So that carer doesn't have to stick with the NDIS provider. They can stay in that house as long as they like, and we'll get paid the rent. They just have a different company look after them. Or if they've moved out, we know from this demand that we're looking at that there's a whole lot more people that are ready to go for that particular area. And we also know that if there was houses available, people would do the applications for finance too.
Yeah.
And the lease guarantee is the government. So, it could get much more solid than that.
Yeah. So, and that's just pricing. So we can see that we can pay, up to, let's say, high 700s. There's not really too much of a difference in the rent at all. So, the most rent we're getting is about 122, about $90,000 a year out of these things. But for a $700,000 property, it's only $10,000 less in income, roughly.
And you went through the exercise before and looking at the commercial rating and looking at the valuation on these ones. What would you get surplus in that sort of calculation?
I've never had apartments refinanced, so I'm not really sure how the banks would look at them.
Okay.
Because when you've got apartments, if you've got one idiot that gets divorced and sells it cheap, it just
get a fire sale.
down. Yeah, it just drags down everybody else in the building.
Yeah.
Typically though, so that's just a word of caution. That's all. But based on the income, you've got a commercial lease. It's worth over $1 million. Well, it's worth $1 million. Okay, what we're paying $750,000 for is worth $1 million just based on the income. It's $1.5 million.
And the thing to focus on here is the net yield is somewhere between 11 and 12% net.
Yeah,
that's pretty damn good.
Yeah, so it's huge. That's for sure.
Because a net house and land is about 3%.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. This is 4 times better.
Exactly. And we've got that built-in capital growth, sort of nearly guaranteed there. Alrighty, so that's the apartment side of things. Then we had, we had those profit share properties. And the difference is really just the cost of land. They're all costing about $600,000 to $700,000 to build. A lot of people are getting more than $5,000 a week. There's some audited results that I've got that I can show if you had the time to have a look at. Or then we've got the usual. Let's have a look. Actually, this is Murray Bridge, Rod.
Yep.
So if we have a look, Murray Bridge should come up. The land, 29,000. It's about 750,000.
Mhm.
It was meant to title in November, and it's still not titled.
Mhm.
And the income for something like that was, usually I'll put it on the brochure somewhere, $169,000
Right.
of income. Yeah,
Gross income.
yeah, gross.
Gross.
So we would not build out there at the moment because there's too many houses being built.
Yep.
So we would wait till they were all filled up before we went and looked there again. The area that has the highest demand is also South Australia, and around Mildura. Renmark.
Yep.
So Renmark is serviced by Mildura, and in Mildura there's more than 250 staff. Let's have a look. So this property is about 950,000 roughly. It's the typical sort of investment property that most people think of with NDIS. It's got 3 high physical support people. So this is one of the newer houses. So this is one that has been redesigned for a bigger house. So it's future proof.
Gee,
and
it's a big house, big block. Who pays for the lawn maintenance and all that? The participant?
No, the NDIS provider
Okay.
pays for all the maintenance on it.
Out of their 40%.
Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah. Well, that's part of the expenses for it.
Yep.
So out of the 60%.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so land around the $200,000 mark. Build's a bit more expensive out there in some of the regional areas. This one's got the sprinklers in there, which is about $40,000 as well. And
Would your financing be 20% deposit on that?
it depends in what name it's purchased. So if you purchased it in a family trust structure or unit trust, some sort of a business, yes, you very often need a 20% deposit.
Yep.
If you purchase it in your own name, you very often only need a 10% deposit.
Right.
With it. Still in the 20%.
If you could leverage up to 10% with the high income situation, you'd do pretty well.
Yes, and that's why a lot of people will just buy it in their own name because it's very straightforward. Very straightforward. They get access to the funds straight away. A lot of them don't care if they're paying a whole lot of tax because they've still got $100,000 coming into their pocket that they can, pay off the mortgage or pay school fees and don't have to worry too much about tax structure or
stop working. That's all.
What's that?
As long as Tammy can stop working.
Yeah. That's the missus, is it?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what's she on 60 or something?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
these sort of packages would give you that plus some.
Yeah, well, if you think there's about 210 that comes in, if you've borrowed $1 million, let's say, all right, by the time you've paid stamp duty and fees, and there's always a cost of money, and the interest rate's 8%, then you're paying $80,000 a year in interest. The IS provider's taking 15%, so they're taking $30,000 or so.
Yeah.
So there's 110 gone. So that leaves you with
100.
Yeah, 100. Less any tax as well, and that's in one transaction. And the whole paperwork and everything to do with it might take you a day or two to do the appropriate paperwork to get all that done.
And even if you were copping 30% tax, you'd still have a net 70.
Yeah.
What happens if you only end up with 2 people in that house?
Not much. So there's a couple of ways to look at it. In that area, we know that you're going to end up with 3, just because of the demand and that there's no land around.
Okay.
and this is land that NDIS provider went and bought as well.
It's a much bigger house. It's 80 square meters bigger than your normal 185s.
Yeah.
So when would the house be ready to go?
The land is ready to start building, so we're actually got a couple underway in that area at the moment. The land is registered, ready to go, which is the bottleneck, and that's why we don't like land that's untitled, because it's been dragged out.
Yeah.
And if it gets dragged out, the NDIS participants, got to find somewhere else to go. And once they've moved into another house, very, 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 very difficult / impossible to get them out of that house.
Yeah.
So, and that's another reason why we're sort of avoiding Murray Bridge at the moment. It's just no guarantees at the moment.
Yeah, no, there's such a demand for land that it's not registering quickly.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll email Rod all these examples. You can have a look at them. You just, think whether you're comfortable with the build to rent, which is, just very straightforward, or if you are more interested in making a bit more money out of the share deal, slightly different process, same sort of theory.
Or an apartment.
I want to look at the apartment, Rod, to see if it suits our super.
Yeah.
As well.
Yep. I can see that. I think probably a bit more informed, Joe.
Yeah. Like it's
All right. And this is a whole new world for people. It's a different way of looking at investing. I keep saying it's the best investment in the world, thanks to the leverage and the government paying all the bills, etc. But if you have any more questions, obviously you can give me a buzz anytime you like as well, day or night, because we're working around the clock with all this. Like I was whinging before. And
just a quick one, Joe. The 10%, say, on the house and land deal like that would run through your specialist brokers still.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. That's cool. That's fine. Let's stick with the experts.
Yeah, we tell people they have to use our brokers every time. We've let them use their own, because their own broker knows their circumstances and they expect it's going to go through. They've ended up losing the land, or not getting it done, or paying penalties or something like that. It's just been a nightmare.
I don't disagree with you. I support that. Yeah.
It's not straightforward, unfortunately. Are you interested in having a look at audited results from the profit of those profit share properties?
Rod, if you want to have a look, I've got to go pick up Aria from school.
Okay, okay. Well, you go, Joe. I'll get all this stuff and then we'll reconnect.
Done. Okay.
Okay. Thanks for your time, Joe.
Thank you, guys.
Anytime.
And Joe,
Rod, we'll talk later, Rod. Yeah.
Okay, mate. Cheers.
See you guys. Bye.
Yeah, Rod.
You do stuff in Encounter Bay.
Yeah, so there's actually built houses there that have been there for a couple of years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a good area,
Really.
I have a very good mate who lives there. In fact, we've been talking on the weekend, not about this, but yeah, I'm looking. He's brokering some ordinary stuff for me, house land for ordinary investors down that way. So
okay. Alrighty. Well, there's an NDIS house that's been there for maybe 3 or 4 years.
And why has it been there unattended? What's been the story?
It's not unattended. It's the income that it's making a year.
Yeah.
It's over 250,000.
But does some investor own it, or what's the story with it?
Yeah. So these are the income that's been generated. This is actual from one of our customers.
Oh, I see. These are actual profit and loss declarations, sort of audited figures.
These are audited figures.
Ah, okay, I got you.
Right. Yeah. So there's a place up in Sydney that's getting over $300,000 a year.
Yes.
Most of them are around the $250,000 a year.
Sure.
And every 3 months. With the profit share deal, the results get audited, and then they get paid out in the next 2 months after that. So we can see that this particular property, a little while ago though, generated $354,000.
Yes.
Had to pay a lot of wages, to the doctors and staff and all that sort of thing, and everything else that was required.
Yeah.
But there was $150,000 worth of net profit.
Why was the net profit after tax? Why was there no tax?
Because it gets distributed to the owners. So
this is from the I get you.
Yeah, so this is what the house generated. This is the house bank account. And then 60% of that 154 goes to Cocoon and 40% goes to the investor.
Yeah.
So the investor would have got 60 grand or so.
Yeah.
And then they've got to pay the tax on that income.
And so to get that 60 grand, what would they have invested?
They would have spent 10% on the land, right?
Yep.
So 25 grand, 35,000. 5% build deposit on a $600,000 property, 30 grand. Stamp duty, 10 grand, 20 grand.
Yeah.
So they've probably invested maybe 80 to 100,000 plus the repayments while the house is being built. So
10 grand, maybe more.
Maybe a bit more.
Yeah,
so
maybe more.
Usually the mortgage brokers are going to say that you're going to need 130, 150 to get one of these things through to completion.
And you get 60 for that. So
per quarter. Yeah. So you've doubled your money in the first year.
25 and all that's 25% return on investment.
I thought it's more like 125%.
Oh, sorry. Yes, sorry. Yeah. What did we talk about? 160 divide by 60, wasn't it? Was that the about
but just remember 60 is per quarter. Per quarter.
Oh, per quarter.
Yes. 240,000 a year.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So so the wife doesn't have to go to work anymore for good old Joe.
Jesus Christ.
There you go. Where the hell's O'Sullivan Beach?
In South Australia.
So this guy obviously likes cheap land.
Yeah.
It's a different accountant, you see. Force. Okay. And then these are the audited results. So this house generated 381,391, including rent. 150 grand a year still comes out about the same. Sorry, per quarter, 600,000 a year, $240,000 in income. So
that O'Sullivan Beach is just in the metropolitan south of Adelaide.
Oh, there's another one for Encounter Bay, I think.
Yeah. 157 versus 154 before.
Yeah.
That's per quarter. Jesus Christ.
Yep. So the proof's all there.
And that's a profit share. Is that one that was sitting there, the house one you just had there, the 900 and something, was that fella, is that a profit share as well?
No, that's pure rent.
Pure rent.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's certain areas or for certain reasons you can introduce profit share as an option vis-a-vis straight rent.
Correct. That's people's two options. I just find it's a little bit more confusing for people for profit share.
Yeah.
They don't really understand it and ask 100 questions. So sometimes we don't even mention it, but just let me pull up something else for you. So there's a list of all the ways that we generate income. You see that full list?
Yep.
Yeah. So every one of those services gets invoiced to the government. Every one of these people is on staff. So Cocoon's paying the occupational therapists, whatever it is, $100 an hour, but they're charged out at the schedule rate of $300 per visit.
Yeah.
And so we make profit out of that. And
Yep.
of course, we also, the rent is also an income that house generates, so we get a share of the rent.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Now, go just back to that subject we were on before Joe came on board. You said if on those apartments there's only 1% that you get,
Yeah.
is that right?
That you get.
Okay, so you can get a click out of it, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll get 1%, you'll get 1%.
okay, so and what was the price point on those? So about
Uh,
$750.
Yeah, they're just under. They start under 700,000.
Yeah.
And then let's have a look. Yeah, up to about 760 or so.
Okay, so it's about $7,000. What percentage applies to, say, the straight rental one?
You're getting your 35 grand on those.
35. Okay.
Yeah.
35 plus?
Yeah.
Okay. And what about the profit share?
30 plus.
30 plus. Okay. Okay. Yeah. In Joe's position, I mean, basically what he wants is to be able to write off, to cover 60 odd grand a year so that Tammy doesn't have to work. That's 60 tax pay. No, well, of course, she pays tax on hers, so maybe 50 grand tax paid. Which is the best option as you see it there to start him off?
The safest thing is just the build to rent properties.
Right.
They're the safest.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say safest, but very straightforward, lowest cost to get into. We
And
know
they're
that
10, are they a 10% or are they?
they can be if he buys it in his own name, yeah.
Okay, they've got the super fund and the rest has just been the other two, but they've sold them subsequently, were in their own names. Okay, and if the advantage, of course, he could put them into a family trust, couldn't he?
Yep, correct.
And what
So
what deposit would he want then?
Some of the suppliers want a 20% deposit.
Yeah.
I'm told one of them still only wants a 10% deposit if they do that.
Yeah.
So that would be wonderful, but finance question. So let him sort it out with finance.
Okay, and we'd handle all that through your broker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I use a few different brokers because they get busy, they get overloaded.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, he's going to do something. I just go on your advice there. I'd probably be guiding him then to the rent to own, but I wouldn't mind betting he'd want to put an apartment into the super and then do a straight rent for himself.
Very good.
He's got 1.6 borrowing capacity, plus he's got about 300,000 in his super spare because he's already got a property in there.
All right. I should have stopped recording.
Oh,
Let me stop.
you better go back and find it and chop it.
Yeah, exactly. Not sure how to do that. Let's have a look. But yeah, that just reminded me. One of the ones in the build to rent in Renmark, that's what I bought as well.
Yes.
So that's part of my bribery and corruption with the NDIS providers to get them to look after us.
Yep.
Hang on. Oh, there we go.